Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very, very beautiful day today, the 13th day of June 2023. Well, temperature is 12 degrees and mostly sunny, getting up to 24 later in the day. And are you enjoying this cold weather, or would you rather it be summer where you can, have picnics, go for a dip and take a swim and all those things? Well, there's good and bad about all the seasons, but this is Brisbane and we're just loving it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today I'll bring to you a glimpse of the book launch that took place yesterday, and the book is Between Thought and Action. So what is it that happens between thought and action? It's an intellectual biography of Fethullah Gulen by Professor Ori Z. Salters. And what a wonderful event it was yesterday. And my role was to, do a reflection on the event, on the book launch, not having read the book, but we will look at, what I had to say there. But first of all, let's take a look at the news in brief. Once again, welcome to the show.
The bus involved in the horrific crash in the New South Wales Hunter Valley will appear in court today, charged with multiple driving offences. 10 wedding guests died and more than 20 were injured in the crash. The first victims have been identified as singleton couple Andrew and Lynn Scott, who leave behind 2 young children. The local community is in shock and counselling is being offered at drop-in centres, while first responders are also being supported. The lights around parts of Sydney Harbour have gone dark briefly overnight in honour of the victims involved in that fatal bus crash. The Sydney Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge lights were switched off for 1 minute, along with skyscrapers along Circular Quay. The Federal Housing Minister has written to the Greens and the Senate crossbench offering concessions on the government's signature housing policy. Negotiations have been stalled, with the Greens refusing to support the $10 billion Housing Future Fund unless key demands are met. The federal government is now willing to guarantee it will contribute $500 million a year to building new homes. And former US President Donald Trump has arrived in Miami ahead of his appearance in federal court to face charges of mishandling national security files. A huge security operation has been put in place ahead of his appearance. He's facing dozens of charges of illegally retaining classified information, including some about nuclear secrets.
Yes, there must be something about those yellow plastic tapes. Wherever there's a police surveillance or something, or something where people need to be kept out, all you need is that yellow tape, put it around, and that's it. People don't cross that line, and you can have big fences and things which people break through in that. So the power of the yellow plastic, as you can see there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, now we will have a look at that book launch of yesterday. And this is just the tail end where I did a brief reflection on the launch itself. Well, thank you very much for that very wonderful and generous introduction, and congratulations on the 27th out of the 28th book that you have launched. And my reflection today is on a lot of things that you've talked about today, and it is wonderful to see that. But first of all, let me begin by thanking QIS and for the wonderful work they do in bringing all communities together. As we were discussing just outside, that sometimes you're looking, when you look at your own faith, your own religion, everything, you're looking from inside. Or when you look from outside, there is always a slightly different angle. And whenever you go and talk to many people, then you find out about many things, rather than many people who from outside just have this thought in their mind, this is what they do, this is who they are. So, the book itself, amazing thought, meaning, thought, what happens between thought to action. I think many people fail in between. A lot of people get thoughts, but they never take it to action. They never act on it. And taking that action is the part which really gets it. When you look at the spaceship, when spaceship going out into the space, most of the fuel is burned on the liftoff, not once it's in orbit. So that action, that overcoming inertia, that is what really needs to come out from this, and that is very good. And I must also acknowledge Samantha. You did a wonderful job of the mode ratings. You did so well. And I'm not reflecting on the book itself because, unlike you, I haven't had the chance to read it yet. But maybe after tonight. I also recognize Janet Dean OAM, and she's in historical societies and many other societies. Amazing work that she does. You go to any function, you'll probably find her. She's always there. Osma, once again, thank you so much, for the invite, and Mohammed and MC, amazing job that you did. Now, a few of the things that we learned today, civic Islam. Amazing concept there. I think that message probably needs to go out, in leaps and bounds out into the community. How good is that? So, but I mean, I'm pretty sure there's many people in the community who don't see it that way. And amazing the way you put it out there, Professor. And action is again, which I touched on. And when you talked about, it's not only my way, everyone's way, the ego, there's another saying that as many faiths, that many paths, but they all lead to the same place. It doesn't mean that your path is the only way, or that is the only path that is there. When we look at what you talked about, ignorance, education, and dialogue. Now, I'll touch on dialogue. I think this is what we're having today, and I must commend you for having visited so many places and talking about this and taking the message out there. And many times the problems arise or problems exist because of lack of dialogue. Many things which can be sorted out, if you sit down face to face, bring the things to the dialogue and have that faithful, fruitful dialogue, and I think many things could be said. And the principle of Hizbah, service, and this is what we really need to do out there. It is amazing that such movement does exist, where the key word is service, and it's service to the humanity, service to that, not service to the self, as he rightfully mentioned. When there are many people who do many things for themselves. Even though I quite like the way you mentioned that in disguise they will be seen to be doing for the community or doing for that, but in fact, in deep inside, they're doing it for themselves. So there are very few people out there who are genuinely doing it for the community, and such was as you mentioned. And I did a small research, today just before coming here, and I quite liked the energy that you used about celebrities or big stars that you always dream about meeting. And when you meet them and they say, my God, it's not quite what. And in this case, as you mentioned, that exceeded the expectation. So that would have been just such a wonderful experience, and that will only come from someone who's genuinely, coming from within. So these are some of the things that I have touched on, and science and religion, and of course that is another big topic. And many times discussed. Some people are so opposed to science. This is not. But as you mentioned, many of the things were there and prophesied well before. It might be discovered today in today's day and age. It doesn't mean that did not exist before. That knowledge was not there. Some of the knowledge, some of the technology that's being used there did exist. It got lost within the way. Maybe it's being rediscovered. So it's nothing. Many things have not been reinvented, but they have just been discovered through science. And so science and religion go hand in hand, and I think quite right you said that. And misconception again, that's a big problem today in the world when there is misconception and. People always look at things from their point of view, and many times there are many ill-founded beliefs within the system, and not not doing research, as you talked about, the journalists who did not do the research, and that happens a lot today. There are many articles that get published, many journals that get published. Where did they find the information? These days it's so easy to just go on the web, and it unless you find out the correct source, now it could be misleading, or it could be biased. It could be someone's opinion that you were putting forward, and it might not be actual there. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I'm so pleased to be here today, and I think it has been very enlightening, very enlightening for me personally. On the reflection, it should have some of your personal things, and I think what we really need to do is what is saying there, building bridges through dialogue, education, and service. Thank you very much.
I now have the great privilege of inviting.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, that little extract from the book launch yesterday, and as I mentioned in there, that it was a privilege to actually be in there. Well, right now, let's take a look at that horror bus crash and see what do we know, what have we found out so far.
"7:30's Adam Harvey is on the scene of the crash. Adam, the district ambulance commander that you were speaking to, who we just saw in that grab, he's obviously been there for many hours. Can you tell me a little bit about what he's been doing over that time?
Yes, well, he's just left the scene finally to go and get some sleep, Sarah, after a long night and day here, effectively overseeing this operation. He got here about 40 minutes after the bus rolled over, and just describes quite an incredible scene where you've got tents being set up outside the bus where people were being treated for very traumatic injuries, blood products coming in, helicopters having to land at a safe distance away because the fog was so thick, fire brigade crews and ambulance crews putting inflatable airbags underneath the bus to try and lift it up so that crews could access the casualties and the bodies inside. All this frantic activity took place over about 3 hours before the final casualties were able to be taken to 4 different hospitals, but the entire operation is still going on now.
It's hard to imagine an operation like that being done in the midst of dense fog.
Yeah, that's right. Just even getting to the location would have been tricky, especially for those helicopters. But people got here extraordinarily quickly. The first highway patrol cars were here within a few minutes. An off-duty ambulance officer was one of the first people here, and some of the viewers might have heard his audio today of describing that scene. In a very calm voice, but the things he was describing, the 7 fatalities at that point, and all of these code red and yellow for the most critical type of cases, was extraordinary. And as Luke Wiseman says, he's never seen anything like that in his career in the ambulance service.
And obviously it's been a very intense day. Is there still activity at the scene?
Well, the bus has just been righted. The 57-seat bus is now back on its wheels. It's still there. The emergency services, the police accident investigation team are still there trying to work out exactly what happened, trying to work out why this what seems, I suppose, a relatively simple accident, a bus rolling onto its side, has led to so many deaths, and how this could have happened. In extreme fog, very thick fog, but on a wide road, brightly lit, at an entrance to a motorway. It seems extraordinary.
Now, have you had a chance to gauge the response of the community around the area today, Adam?
Yeah, I've spoken to quite a few people. Disbelief, I think, was the first reaction of many when they got these calls saying that there was a terrible accident here, and then that's moved into just shock when they've realised it's not only has one of the worst accidents in recent memory happened in their backyard, but they know many of the people who are involved. The local mayor, Sue Moore, was telling me that they think 5 of the 10 fatalities are from the small town of Singleton. There'll be an area where people can go tomorrow to try and speak to counsellors and come to terms with, get help with what they've seen. I went to the local AFL club, which is where a lot of the players, because the bride and groom were both members of this AFL club, the Singleton Roosters. All the players and their friends were gathering there. I was struck by just how young everybody was. It's a young team, as one of the senior members of the team told me, and all that they can do today is try and be there for each other, gather and give each other support through their presence.
Adam Harvey.
All we can do is give our support with the presence, and that is such a tragic incident out there, how it goes out to that community. Well, the lead out story for today is that the referendum is going to be debated in the Senate.
I'm conscious that there's still a way to go, and the job is for the rest of us to keep going. There's still a fair way ahead of us before we get to the referendum.
Why do you think fewer people are indicating that they would vote yes?
Well, it's clear that the commentary by the opposition in terms of putting their stance is having an impact. There is no doubt about that. But I would still reach out to even those in opposition to look deeply into this simple request by First Nations people to have an advice to the Parliament, an advice, and to be recognised as First Nations people in the Australian Constitution. It's really quite simple, Lisa, and we've been saying that and we'll continue to keep saying that.
What did you think of Noel Pearson's comments where he felt that the Yes campaign was being snookered, that there was time to refocus the campaign, to have it talking more about the recognition of Indigenous Australians? Does he have a point? Does the campaign lack clarity?
I'd say to Australians this: the journey has been a marathon for so many of our leaders, people like Noel Pearson, who've been around for decades on this journey, people like Pat Dodson, Marcia Langton. This has not just happened this year for those Australians who are getting accustomed to this. It's a journey, it's a marathon, and I recognise and understand the deep desire by our leaders who would like to see this go through, and I say to them, keep the faith. We will get there. I'm absolutely confident that once this gets through the Parliament and out to the Australian people will truly see what this is about.
So do you think that that's been the problem, the debate that we've seen, the fact that it's not yet something that is legislation that you can say, well, here it is and here is the date? Has that been the problem?
Well, I am conscious that here on Capitol Hill, people do like to say all sorts of things, and perhaps without really any care or responsibility. But when you're on the ground out there, as I've been, with First Nations people, and see the deep hurt that they've experienced for decades over policies that should never have occurred, and if they feel that they can have a say, that this is something that's important to them, then I say to politicians here, this may not matter to you, but it matters to First Nations people on the ground. And I say to my senators and my colleagues, all of them, on every side, keep this debate in the next fortnight enormously respectful. We can do this as a country in a very dignified, respectable way, and so it should be in the debate.
Do you think the Yes campaign needs to change at all?
Well, there's always ways of doing things better, Lisa. We haven't been in a referendum as First Nations people, certainly since 1967. So clearly there's a lot of learning along the way, and I'm incredibly confident that those members of the Yes campaign are looking at everything, every angle, and are leaving no stone unturned as to how they can reach out to the hearts of all Australians and urge them to see the simplicity of this request.
The simplicity of the request, well, unfortunately, is not quite simple to many people. Many people still don't understand. Many people just think that that's all right. It's finally giving the Indigenous people a voice. But there's more to that. There's more behind the scenes to that. We might be, as I said, in fact, right after the show today, I'll be talking to some people and probably bringing them on the show to look at some of those points to see why and how, what's behind, what's driving this, what could be possible consequences. Has this been well thought over or not? Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to go to our functions and events, and hopefully we got the right folder today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, up to date on Australian Indian Radio. And hey, that was a wonderful segment there today. We've covered a lot of things. We'd like to bring to you something from the local covering. So tomorrow we will bring to you the speech by our Federal Treasurer, Honourable Jim Chalmers, at the Islamic College of Brisbane's citizenship ceremony. And that happened in the weekend. We have got the clip now ready, so we will bring that to you tomorrow. Until then, it's goodbye from us. It's been wonderful having your company as usual. It's so good to see. Enjoy the rest of the day and stay cool and calm and enjoy this beautiful season. Don't forget, getting up to 24 degrees later on. Till tomorrow, it's goodbye.